Okay, so how the fuck do you actually get comfy in meditation, right? Let's get into it. So there's a couple of different positions that may or may not feel comfortable to you. There's different positions that you can sit in for meditation. Obviously, there's like this crazy full lotus position that I never, ever sit in for meditation. I do this pose like literally never in my life, even though I'm a yoga teacher. So there's a number of different positions that I'll show you, but also there's a number of different props that you can use to make your life so much more comfortable when in meditation. And this is such an important, crucial part of your meditation process, because if you're not comfortable, it just ruins your entire experience, right? Like if you're sitting there in pins and needles, in pain, in back pain, like you're just not going to be able to drop in and get that juicy, delicious energy transformation from your practice. Okay, so let's get into it. So the first little prop, and this is the one that I use, is a floor cushion. So this is just a big floor cushion that I got from Tree of Life. So Tree of Life sells floor cushions, other places sell floor cushions. If you're wanting a proper fancy meditation one, they're called Zambutons. So that could be an option. And then I use a second cushion as well. So the bottom cushion covers everything so that your ankles, your shins are sitting on a nice, soft, comfortable surface instead of on the hard ground. And that is the absolute most important aspect for me specifically, or for me, specifically to not get pins and needles in my ankles. So for me, it's this ankle joint here in contact with the earth that creates pins and needles in my legs and in my feet. So by sitting on the floor cushion, my ankles are resting on a nice soft surface. That doesn't happen. And then this thing of like your back hunching forward and getting back pain by trying to stick your back up straight, that's solved by a second little cushion. And depending on your range, you might need more or less height. And I'll go into that in a second. But I've just got this really floppy, thin, shitty little cushion that I fold in half and pop it just underneath the base of my tailbone. So it's like I'm tilting off it, like I'm falling off it. And that just tilts my tailbone slightly forward so that I can sit up straight with a flat, straight back without having to engage all my muscles to sit up really straight. So I'll just show you. This is with the cushion and then without the cushion. So you see the difference, like this is where my body wants to go. I'll just say a little note on that too for people that are really flexible, because I have quite a flexible spine. I used to use bolsters, which are big, thick yoga cushions that I'll get into in a second. I used to sit on the edge of a bolster because that's what's often taught to us in yoga classes. And for me, that actually overarched my spine. So it did something like this. And I would sit in meditation like this, and I thought this was straight. But it's not. So just be aware. So I actually had to practice tilting my tailbone slightly the other way so that I was actually straight in my spine. So just, you can do it in front of a mirror, or you can ask someone to look at you to make sure that your spine's actually straight, not hunching forward or overarching. Cool. So that's one option. Another thing that tends to happen to people that have tight hip flexors, so these muscles at the front of your body, or tight glutes, is that they come to a cross-legged position and their knees are somewhere up here. So if this is you, what you can do is place cushions stacked underneath so that your knees are resting on the cushions, so that you're not tensing the muscles to keep your legs up here, even though that's as far as they'll go, they're still working to keep your knees up here. So if you can place height underneath until where your knees actually land so that you can relax into wherever you are. If you're someone whose knees are up really high like this, then you'll need more height underneath your tailbone, much more than me. So the higher that your tailbone sits, the more your knees will drop down. So you can experiment with both of those things if you're someone with tight knees. Not tight knees, knees that sit up here. Another thing to focus on if you're someone like that is to really loosen through your hip flexors and through your glutes. So there's lots of stretches that you can look into for that, and you might even want to do a couple of those stretches before sitting down in meditation. Cool. So that's one option. Another option, if you don't want to go out and buy one of these floor cushions, is just spreading out a folded over blanket in the same kind of size as this floor cushion. So you'll want to fold the blanket over a couple of times so that it is nice and thick. Obviously, the thickness of this floor cushion could even be like 2 or 3 folded blankets. So you really want it to be nice and cushiony with lots of padding so that your ankles aren't digging into the hard surface beneath you. So that's another option there. Instead of the floor cushion, you can use a blanket. You can use a yoga mat, but it's not enough padding for me personally. If I just sat down on my yoga mat on a hard surface with the small cushion underneath my tailbone, I will start to get pins and needles in my feet and all the way up my legs. So that's me specifically. You can train yourself out of that, but yeah, I just choose to use a cushion. So another option is to use a bolster, and I'll go into that in a second actually, because I want to go into the actual positions that you can sit yourself in for meditation. So the position that I sit in is a semi-cross-legged position. So I have one heel around my groin. You can put that heel all the way into your groin and sit on it, but it's not comfortable for me. And I just have my other heel in front. So you can see one heel is in front of the other. And this is really comfortable for me. So my knees are quite wide and open. It might be more comfortable for you to actually cross at your shins instead. And then you're in this kind of boxy cross-legged position. That's totally an option as well. You can play around with different crosses. You can see there's a big difference between those two. So you can play around with whatever positioning in the cross-legged position works for you. There's some other more advanced cross-legged positions that are specific, that they teach specifically in yoga and meditation books. I'm not going to go into them because I don't feel that they're comfortable, but you can look into those if that's something that you're interested in. Another seated position that you can try is kneeling like this. So this isn't comfortable for me to sit in long periods of time, but it might be for you. Another option that I do find really comfortable is to sit on a bolster, and I'll demonstrate with an actual bolster in a second, but you put the bolster in between your legs and you're sitting up on the bolster, and that makes it a lot more comfortable. So they're the different types of actual seated positions that you can sit in. So now I'm going to show you how you can make a bolster at home. So a bolster is a yoga cushion that is specifically designed for meditation and yoga poses. So it's quite long and circular, and it's really quite firm. So you can't just use a pillow instead of a bolster because your pillow will just squash down into like nothing essentially, whereas a bolster is really hard and firm in this circular round position. So it's quite high, which is why it's great for people whose knees sit up high like this, because it gives you that elevated height that I was talking about that you need underneath your tailbone. Like I said, for me, the bolster's too high to use under my tailbone, but I do straddle the bolster in that kneeling position as an option for meditation as well. The other props that you can use are blocks. So sometimes people will stack yoga blocks under their knees or sit on the edge of a block instead of one of these cushions. But again, for me, I find that not comfortable because blocks are really hard. I would prefer to use cushions and pillows, which you'd be more likely to have at home anyway. So I'll show you how to make a bolster at home, and then I'll show you that straddled position with the bolster that you can try, and that's all. Okay, so this is how I've discovered to make a makeshift bolster at home. I discovered this during COVID. So if you grab two kind of floppy pillows, because what we want to do is be able to fold them in half so that we're able to get that really firm consistency to our bolster. So two kind of flattish pillows, or you could use one big pillow. It's just harder to roll it up tighter. And then you need a really nice long blanket. So it needs to be quite long so that you can wrap it up and it'll stay wrapped up. So grab your pillows, and we're just going to essentially roll them up like a burrito. But first of all, you want to fold your pillows over into a little sausage or in half first, and then you can start to wrap the blanket around it. Try to be really tight with this first one. So try to make this first one as tight as you can. And then you just roll it all the way up. This blanket is really thick, so this is quite a big bolster. So you might not want to use a blanket that is quite that thick, but this is essentially what a bolster looks like. And then that straddling position that I was talking about is, move back, doing this. So you're in that kneeling position, but your bolster is in the middle. Spin around, so like this. So this is really comfortable. It's really easy to have your spine straight in this position. It's comfortable for your knees, for your legs, and it's actually really good for your ankles to be in this position. We spend basically all of our days with our ankles in this dorsiflexed position, like when we're sitting at a chair or standing. So it's really good for our ankle joints to be in this position. Obviously, just like with the other option, I would make sure that you have a really nice big blanket underneath you so that your ankles are on a nice soft cushiony surface, so they're not just digging into the ground beneath you. But yeah, they are my options to find a nice comfortable position when you're sitting down. If you have any further questions or you're still not feeling comfortable, feel free to message me. Another option, obviously, is to actually sit up in a chair. So I'll demonstrate that in a second. But another option, and I wouldn't recommend this as much, but if you're really struggling with finding a comfortable position with a straight spine, is you can sit against a wall or a couch. Like this is actually really great because it's only part of my back that's in contact with the couch. So you could sit like this against a wall or against a couch if you're having troubles keeping your spine straight, or if your back is getting sore from being in that seated position. But first, try the option with the height underneath your bum, underneath your tailbone, tilting you forward. And if you're still finding that pain, that discomfort in your back, You can sit against a chair or, you can sit against a couch or a wall as well. And that last option of sitting up in a chair. So if you're still finding it really uncomfortable to sit down on the earth, if you're finding the cross-legged or the other position uncomfortable on your knees, your ankles, any other part of your body, you can sit up in a chair. The chair doesn't always help though with your back. It just depends on what chair you're using and what other props you've got. So if you're sitting up on your chair, make sure that your feet are grounding into the ground because you want some connection with the earth below. And so depending on the height of your chair, you might not actually be able to sit all the way back on the backrest. So if I sit back on this backrest, my feet come slightly off the earth. So I would sit forward on my chair with my feet grounding into the earth, and then I'm just holding my spine up straight. You can also put cushions on the back of your chair up against your backrest. I would need quite a big cushion here so that my back is resting then against the cushion, and then I've got that support there. Personally, I wouldn't want to sit all the way back on this chair because, as I mentioned, my feet aren't grounding into the ground. So yeah, you can make sure your feet are grounding, place your cushion or your pillow behind your back so that your back's supported by that, which is then supported by the back of the chair. And yeah, have fun, enjoy your meditation practices. Make sure you try now which positions work best for you. Get yourself really nice and comfortable, and then you'll be able to drop in deeper to your meditations using these tips.